Hello dear YouTube viewers, I hope you're doing well. Let's start our video. The room glowed in the soft golden light of fairy strings draped along the walls, their warm shimmer bouncing off the champagne flutes on every table. The laughter of friends and family filled the air, mingling with the faint melody of a live jazz band in the corner. It was our 5th wedding anniversary, and I had been looking forward to this evening for weeks. I had spared no effort, arranging the guest list, picking out my best suit, even ordering the exact bouquet my wife had carried on our wedding day. Everything was set for a perfect celebration of love. As I moved through the crowd, shaking hands and accepting congratulations, my mind couldn't help but wander back to the first time I met her. It had been at a mutual friend's rooftop barbecue years ago, where she stood under the dim city lights, talking animatedly about some book I had never read. I remember laughing at all the wrong moments, yet she smiled as if I'd said something brilliant. We started dating soon after, and in what felt like no time at all, I was down on one knee, asking her to be my wife. From the very start, there had always been him, Daniel, her best friend. She introduced him on our 3rd date, saying they had known each other since college. He was tall, confident, and seemed to have a joke ready for every moment. I told myself not to overthink it. She insisted they were like siblings, and I believed her. I wanted to believe her. Even when I noticed how often his name came up in casual conversation, even when his number was always among the top in her recent calls, I told myself trust was the foundation of marriage. Daniel had been unusually hands-on with the preparations for tonight's party. I'd noticed the two of them exchanging texts constantly in the days leading up to the event, sometimes with her tilting her phone away from my view, as if it were some private surprise. Earlier today, when I stopped by the venue to check the table arrangements, I found him already there with her, discussing the floral setup as if he were co-hosting. A few friends had made harmless jokes about it. One even teased me this afternoon, saying Daniel seemed more like the groom tonight than I did. I laughed it off, brushing it away as silly banter, but the comment lingered somewhere deep in my chest. Still, I told myself this was our night, hers and mine. I refused to let suspicion taint it. Yet, beneath the clinking glasses and smiling faces, a small shadow stirred inside me, a whisper I tried to ignore. Something felt just slightly out of place, though I couldn't name it. I poured myself another drink, convinced that by the end of the evening, I would look back on all this doubt and laugh at how paranoid I'd been. The evening unfolded in a rush of warmth and noise. Guests began arriving in clusters, their laughter carrying in from the entrance as the music swelled just enough to make conversation feel intimate. The scent of fresh flowers mixed with the aroma of the buffet, and the pop of champagne corks punctuated the air like celebratory exclamation marks. I greeted everyone with the easy smile of a man enjoying his anniversary, even though my eyes kept drifting toward my wife. She was radiant, dressed in the soft cream gown we'd chosen together last month, and she moved from guest to guest with effortless charm. Yet it wasn't me she kept gravitating toward, it was Daniel. He stood close to her most of the evening, whispering things that made her laugh in that high, breathless way she usually reserved for private moments between us. Every time I approached them, she would excuse herself, saying they needed to check the dessert table or make sure the playlist was running smoothly. At first, I told myself it was harmless. After all, Daniel had helped with the party planning, and maybe they were just tying up loose ends. But as the night went on, I couldn't ignore how often they slipped away together, leaving me mid-conversation with guests. The room was beautiful, almost too perfect. Against the far wall, a large framed photo from our wedding day stood propped on an easel. It was one of my favorites. She was looking at me like I was the only person in the world. Seeing it tonight made something tighten in my chest. That photograph wasn't just a decoration. It was a reminder of promises made, of the foundation we'd built together. I found myself glancing at it whenever I needed grounding, but also made the unease in my stomach sharper. I tried to focus on my guests, moving from table to table, laughing at stories, accepting congratulations. But fragments of conversations reached me like faint echoes through the music. "They're so close," someone said near the punch bowl. Another voice replied, "It's almost weird, isn't it?" I turned toward them, but they quickly changed the subject when they noticed I was in earshot. The champagne in my hand felt heavier than it should have. My smile started to feel rehearsed, mechanical. Every time my wife returned to my side, she seemed just a little flushed, her hair slightly out of place, and Daniel wasn't far behind. My mind began cataloging these details without permission, each one adding to a growing list of questions I wasn't ready to ask. As the night pressed on, the laughter around me felt slightly distant, as if I were standing behind a pane of glass, watching the celebration rather than participating in it. My guests saw a gracious host, but inside, something restless was pacing, waiting, and listening for the moment when my doubts would either vanish completely or be confirmed beyond repair. It was during the height of the party, when the room was alive with music and chatter, that a distant cousin approached me with a casual smile and asked, "Hey, have you seen your wife? I wanted to congratulate her." I glanced toward the center of the room, where she had been moments ago, laughing with a group of our friends, but she wasn't there. My eyes scanned the crowd, searching for that cream-colored gown. Nothing. I brushed it off at first, assuming she was greeting guests near the entrance, but after another minute passed, unease tugged at me. "She's probably in the kitchen," I muttered to myself, and made my way past the buffet tables. The kitchen was empty, save for a few trays waiting to be brought out. No sign of her. The balcony came next, one of her favorite spots to steal a breath during events, but the sliding door was closed, and outside was just the cool night air and an empty chair. A flicker of irritation sparked in me. She had been vanishing all evening with Daniel, and now she was gone again. I checked the restroom near the hall. Vacant. The noise of the party seemed to grow fainter with each step I took away from the main room, replaced by the thudding in my ears. That was when I noticed it. The door at the top of the staircase, not fully closed. A sliver of light spilled out into the dark hallway, a pale yellow line against the floorboards. My steps slowed. Something in my chest tightened. My hand hovered near the knob, and for a moment I considered turning back. But curiosity mixed with dread is a powerful thing. I pushed the door open just enough to see. The scene hit me all at once. There she was, my wife, half covered by a rumpled bedsheet, her hair messy, her face flushed. Daniel was beside her, shirt undone, his arms still draped possessively over her waist. The air was heavy with the scent of her perfume, now tainted by the unmistakable closeness between them. My heart lurched violently against my ribs, each beat loud enough to drown out my thoughts. I didn't speak. I couldn't. My hands began to tremble, a cold, hollow sensation spreading through my limbs. The voices in my head collided, anger, disbelief, heartbreak, all competing for control. This was my wife, my partner, my forever, and here she was, in the middle of our anniversary party, betraying me in the most intimate way imaginable. For a second, I wondered if I was dreaming. The edges of the room blurred, and time seemed to slow. I noticed absurd details. The clock on the nightstand reading 9:14 p.m., the way the curtain swayed gently from an open window, the faint bass of the music downstairs, pulsing like a reminder that life was still going on beyond this room. Even the clink of glasses and muffled laughter from below felt surreal, like it belonged to another world. 1,000 memories flashed through my mind. The way she'd smiled at me in our wedding photo, the promises whispered in the dark, the nights we stayed up talking about our future. They felt suddenly foreign, like scenes from someone else's life. Shock dulled into a strange numbness. I didn't storm forward or shout, though part of me wanted to tear the room apart. Instead, I just stood there, my breath slow and deliberate, as if moving too quickly would shatter what little composure I had left. I could feel my pulse in my fingertips, in my temples, each beat marking the moment my marriage cracked beyond repair. Daniel finally noticed me, his eyes widening, his mouth opening as if to speak, but I had already turned away. The smell of that room clung to me as I stepped back into the hallway, the door clicking shut behind me. Somewhere deep inside, I knew nothing would ever be the same again. The first instinct was pure, unfiltered rage. My fists clenched so tightly my knuckles whitened, and a hot pulse of adrenaline surged through me. The image of yanking Daniel out of that bed and shouting the truth into my wife's face flashed violently in my mind. I wanted the entire world to hear my anger, to make them both feel the humiliation that was coursing through my veins. But something stopped me, a thin thread of self-control I didn't know I still possessed. I drew in a deep breath, my chest rising and falling in deliberate rhythm. The sound of their quiet laughter from inside the room cut deeper than any shout could, but I refused to give them the satisfaction of seeing me unravel. Without a word, I stepped back, my footsteps silent against the hallway floor. The party music grew louder as I moved away, as if coaxing me back into the world I had left moments earlier. I stood at the top of the stairs, my mind racing through scenarios. I could walk into the party right now, call for everyone's attention, and expose them on the spot. The image was satisfying, watching their faces pale as the guests turned to stare. Or I could simply grab my coat, walk out, and disappear into the night, leaving them to wonder when I'd be back. Another part of me considered waiting until later, confronting her in private, sparing myself the public spectacle, but making sure she knew exactly what she had destroyed. Each option played out in my head like a film, but none felt quite right. They were either too loud or too quiet, too impulsive or too passive. I wanted something more, something that would leave a mark, a moment they could never forget. Then it came to me, a calm, almost unnerving clarity. I wouldn't give them the screaming match they might expect. I wouldn't even let them see my immediate reaction. Instead, I would walk back into that party, smile as though nothing had happened, and wait. I would let the room fill with laughter and champagne until the perfect moment arrived. And when it did, I would take the truth and drop it into their laps in front of everyone, clean, sharp, undeniable. The idea steadied me. I straightened my jacket, forced my breathing to slow, and started down the stairs, my decision set. They wouldn't see the storm until it broke right over their heads. I stepped back into the party with the same composure I'd worn all evening, as if nothing upstairs had happened. The laughter, the clinking of glasses, the faint scent of vanilla from the cake, it all washed over me in a strange haze. No one suspected a thing. My wife was back among the guests now, smiling brightly, Daniel close by her side, holding a glass of wine like he belonged there. I caught her eye, and she smiled at me as though nothing had happened. That smile, so familiar, so practiced, nearly made me falter. But I didn't. I took a moment to collect myself, moving through the room and greeting a few guests casually. Then, when I felt the timing was right, I tapped the side of my champagne flute with the back of a spoon. The ringing sound cut through the music and conversation, drawing every eye toward me. "Ladies and gentlemen," I began, my voice steady and warm, "if I could just have your attention for a moment." A ripple of quiet spread through the room. I smiled as though I were about to announce a toast, and in a way I was. "First of all, thank you all for coming tonight. It means the world to us, to me, that you took the time to celebrate this milestone. 5 years of marriage. 5 years of love, challenges, laughter, and memories." A few people clapped softly. My wife's expression was relaxed, even touched. I could see Daniel sipping from his glass, eyes on me. I continued, my tone still light. "Marriage is an extraordinary journey. It's built on trust, on loyalty, on the little choices we make every single day to protect what we have with the person we've promised to love forever." I let the words linger. And when that trust is honored, it's a beautiful thing. When it's broken, my voice dipped just slightly, enough for the room to feel the shift. It changes everything. The smiles in the crowd began to fade. A few glanced at each other, uncertain. The air seemed to tighten around us. "Sometimes," I went on, "life has a way of surprising you. Tonight, I had a surprise planned for my wife, something I thought would make this night unforgettable. But as it turns out, she and her dear friend managed to surprise me first." A soft murmur ran through the guests. My wife's smile froze, and Daniel's jaw tensed. I gestured toward them with an open hand. "Darling, Daniel, would you come up here for a moment?" They hesitated, then stepped forward, the space between them slightly too close. I could see the uncertainty in her eyes now, and Daniel's expression had gone blank. When they reached my side, I looked out at the crowd and spoke clearly. A few guests exchanged subtle, knowing glances, their eyes flicking toward her. She shifts in her seat, a faint flush rising to her cheeks, her smile faltering as the gentle pressure of attention lands squarely on her. The tension tightens, and for the first time that evening, she is noticeably unsettled, her previous composure slipping just enough to reveal the unease he had quietly observed all night. He lets the silence stretch for a heartbeat, letting the words from his toast hang in the air. Then, with deliberate calm, he reaches into his jacket pocket and pulls out a small, crisp photo. The edges are sharp, the image unmistakable. The photo shows her at a cafe, sitting close to another man, their heads tilted toward each other, laughter frozen in midair. A date stamp in the corner marks it from just last week. He places the photo gently on the table in front of her, sliding it across with careful precision, his eyes never leaving hers. His voice is soft but firm, carrying no malice, only the quiet weight of expectation. "So tonight," he says, "I just want honesty as my gift." The room holds its breath, the warm glow of the candles contrasting sharply with the chill settling over the table. The room seems to hold its breath. Clinking glasses and laughter vanish, leaving only the faint flicker of candlelight and the soft hum of the restaurant in the background. She freezes, her gaze snapping first to the photo, then back to him. The warmth in her expression from moments ago is gone, replaced by a whirlwind of emotions, embarrassment, guilt, and a shadow of fear that tightens her chest. Her hands hover uncertainly above the table, unable to cover the silent accusation the image carries, while the weight of his calm, unwavering stare presses down, without a word. For the first time that evening, the carefully curated celebration falters, suspended in the thick, tense silence that now dominates the table. Her lips part, and words tumble out in a nervous rush. "It's not what it looks like," she begins, her voice faltering, eyes darting around the table as if searching for a lifeline. The friends and family exchange uneasy glances, caught between the urge to step in and the respect for the tense moment unfolding before them. No one speaks, the air thick with anticipation. He remains seated, composed, his expression calm but alert. He lets her speak, absorbing each word with quiet attention, his posture steady, hands relaxed on the table. Every syllable passes through him, but his inner control never wavers. He listens fully, weighing each explanation without a hint of immediate judgment, keeping the balance of the evening firmly in his hands. When her words finally trail off, he sits for a moment, letting the tension settle just enough to respond. He inhales slowly, steadying his voice, and says, "Maybe not, but you've been somewhere else all night, and I deserve better than half your attention." The words land softly yet firmly, clear and unflinching, leaving no room for evasion. Then, without lingering in anger, he shifts his gaze to the rest of the table. "Thank you all again for coming," he adds warmly, his tone regaining the celebratory cadence of the evening. With that, he gently redirects the focus back to the birthday, reclaiming the night from the shadow of betrayal and ensuring the friends and family feel the warmth of the occasion, even as the unspoken truths remain suspended between them. The rest of the evening unfolds in jagged fragments. Conversation is stilted, laughter forced, and the carefully orchestrated celebration unravels quietly. Guests begin to leave earlier than planned, offering sympathetic smiles and murmured goodbyes, sensing the tension that lingers in the air. She approaches him as they step outside, words starting to form on her lips, but he gently stops her. "We'll talk later," he says, his tone calm but firm, signaling that this conversation will happen privately, on his terms. He walks away with a few friends, the night air crisp against his skin, leaving her behind. The act is subtle but deliberate, a clear boundary drawn, marking the shift from celebration to resolution, and letting the evening close, without further public confrontation. In the days that follow, the quiet aftermath of the birthday allows space for the difficult conversation they had both been avoiding. Words are chosen carefully, emotions laid bare, and every explanation and admission weighed with the gravity it deserves. The outcome is neither rushed nor forced. Whether they choose to rebuild trust or bring the relationship to an end depends on the depth of honesty and the willingness to confront the fractures that have emerged. The resolution, fragile or firm, carries the intended lesson that true connection rests on presence, loyalty, and transparency, and that ignoring these truths comes at a cost. Months later, he sits quietly, replaying the events of that night in his mind. The memory of the cake, the photo, and the tense silence remains vivid, but with distance comes perspective. He understands now that the toast wasn't meant as public shaming or spectacle. It was a carefully measured act of self-respect, a way to draw a clear line without sacrificing composure or dignity. He smiles faintly at the thought, realizing the strength in restraint and the power of calm presence. And in that reflection, he concludes quietly to himself, "Sometimes the loudest thing you can say is with calm, deliberate words." The lesson lingers, a reminder of integrity, clarity, and the quiet authority that comes from standing firm without aggression. Thanks for watching. For more videos, please subscribe our channel